Thank you, sir, for a very engaging lecture. My questions got two parts, and you'll excuse my lack of knowledge. I just wanted to say that given my understanding of the Indian culture, we've always been a peace-loving culture and an assimilative culture. Why then would we address another culture or even a nation state as an enemy? And assuming that the answer lies somewhere between theoretical or academic understanding and political reality, why not then use the academic weapons that they have handed over to us very willingly? For example, postmodernism not only allows me to dismiss the idea of India, but it also gives me the capability of dismissing the idea of a UK or, say, the United States of America.
I'm so happy you asked these questions. This makes my whole day.
So
very good.
One last part.
No, but this is two questions already. Two questions already. First question is, we are peace-loving, so why is anybody enemy? Second question is, why don't we use postmodernism against them? Brilliant, thank you very much. So I want to take some time and answer these questions. Peace-loving is a false characterization. We have fought for dharma against adharma from Mahabharata onwards, even before that. So peace-loving is a kind of peace-loving in the sense that we'll put up with nonsense, we'll put up with any abuse is a bad idea. Okay, so first of all, let me tell you, forget India, but let me just tell you, I'll come back to India, but let me just tell you, world has never had a century of peace. Tell me one century where there was no big war going on in recorded history. As far back as history has been recorded, every century was a century of war, had war, some war or other going on. 20th century, 21st century to hai, 20th century, 19th century, 18th, 16th, every century had century of war. So this business of we are peace-loving, well, maybe we would like to be peace-loving, but the world has not been peace-loving. This is the world reality we have to live in. So if you are living in a world not with your eyes closed, with your, like the ostrich with his head in sand, but looking at the real world, it is a Kurukshetra. The world is a Kurukshetra. The Mahabharata never ended. That Mahabharata continued in different forms. Now there is Mahabharata going on somewhere in Syria, there was Mahabharata before that somewhere else. The world we live in is a false idea that the world normal state has been peace, and so let's go back to the normal state. The normal state, if you are really practical and look at the facts of history, we've never had a century of peace. So it is better to be realistic and say we live in troubled times, we have lived in troubled times always, and let's be fair and honest and accept it and learn how to cope with it. Teaching our children how to cope in a world of conflict, in a world of trauma, in a world of problems is more realistic than teaching them this idea कि भी सब कुछ ठीक है, close your eyes, don't see all those things, कोई clash of civilizations नहीं हो रही, ये 5-6 लोग हैं जो ऐसे कर रहे हैं, ज़्यादा लोग नहीं हैं. That is actually bad education. It is not a practical education. Now, why somebody is an enemy? Why is somebody to be called an enemy? This business के कोई opponent है ही नहीं. In cricket you have an opponent, you have to beat him, either he'll beat you or you beat him. In a debate you have an opponent, in politics you have an opponent, you have opponents of all sides. So whatever term you want to call them, the point is that we have opponents in the idea of Indology. So it is not an Indian way to deny that there is an opponent. We've had debating traditions where Shankara would debate opponents. And they had a huge ethics that who loses, there's big penalty for that. So the debating tradition, I'm not talking about physical violence. I'm talking about intellectual kshatriyata. Intellectual kshatriyata meaning we need to be strong, face opponents, take them on, beat them, and win. This is called debate. If you're in an institution, you have a debating society, somebody wins, somebody loses. You have any sports, somebody wins and somebody loses. So in the intellectual area, to refute an argument of Indologist and say this is a false argument, this is wrong, here's why it is wrong. It's not because we are peace-loving, we can't say that. We are truth-loving. I don't think we have to say we are peace-loving, we should say we are truth-loving, and if you are truth-loving, it is part of your job. If you're truth-loving, you want to falsify what is not truthful. You want to do that. So it's not, then everybody is why do we want to be always apologetic and naive and weak? Okay? Nobody else. China has no problem saying, look, you're wrong, we're right, we got the point of view, we will beat you. They have no problem doing that. You name a country which is successful, nobody is successful on the world stage with this kind of a defeatist attitude that we don't want to oppose anybody, like that. So the premise that is the Indian way is a false premise. You just have to read Mahabharata again and you will find out that, read Bhagavad Gita again. This is the advice given to Krishna, that you can't just in the name of peace run away and so on. In the early part of the Gita, the confused Arjun is talking like that. So it takes 18 chapters to unconfuse him. And so I don't have 18 chapter time here, but you should read Gita. It will give you good ideas on the importance of fighting adharma. Even in that case with physical violence, I'm not even proposing that, but in the case of the Gita, proposing physical violence, it becomes a requirement. So let's not fool ourselves with that. Second question is very interesting. Post-modernism. For those of you who don't know, I'll give you just a 1 minute, a quick version. Post-modernism is a theory developed in the West. A lot of French people were involved in this, Derrida, Foucault, these kind of people were involved in the 20th century largely. And then Gayatri Spivak Chakravarti became very, very famous for translating Derrida into English, introducing this whole postmodernism idea into the English-speaking world. She's at Columbia University. And of course the Indians were the great fans who loved it because now we could postmodernize ourselves. Sounds very nice. Modernity ke bhi aage jaye. Postmodern aage. Wow, postmodern chale gaye. So then there is books like Post-Hindu India. Post-India means you break it up into small countries. Balkanized, post-India, fashion ho gaya aisi cheezon ka. Now the theory of postmodernism basically says that all grand narratives, all national narrative, national anthem, anything patriotic, anything nationalistic, these are oppressive. These oppress a lot of people. Nation states were made with violence. They were all created with a lot of violence. And they were all, from the very origin, they are oppressing various people. So these narratives should be broken. That is postmodernism. So the moment you start talking about the greatness of this, that thing, they'll say, "Arey, this is go deconstruct karo." That term is very powerful. Deconstruct means you break it up into small things and you show who's oppressing whom. So a lot of our media, a lot of our ideology today is the result of postmodern intervention in Indian thought. And I gave that as one of the 5 waves of Indology. The 4th wave is postmodernism. The 5th wave is Neo-Orientalism. So question comes, okay, postmodernism will harm us as a nation. It's intended to. Why don't we accept it and just do the same to them? Right? That's the question. It's like saying, in the 70s, I was in the US in the corporate life, when these laws, harassment of women. Because suddenly a lot of women came to the workplace. Women were not in the job market. Suddenly a lot of women came in the workplace. It used to be a man's world. And so they had, Playboy, pin-up pictures. There were all these kind of male things going on. And women were coming. So they were starting complaining that we're feeling harassed. So laws came. You could get sued. So the HR department was having all these seminars for men to how to behave yourself. So a huge industry of re-educating the males on, avoiding this. So one fellow stood up and said, suppose we are doing this, they can also do it to us. They can put up pin-ups also. Or if somebody is accused of sexual harassment, she could harass him also. Now, I'll come to the argument that they are postmodernizing, deconstructing us, we can do it to them. Okay, I'll come to that. The law said, and common sense said, that there is inequality of power. So the strong oppressing the weak. You cannot argue and justify it by saying, वो weak भी मेरे को कर दे, मैंने उसको मुक्का मार दिया था, वो भी मेरे को मुक्का मार दे. Point is, you're the tough guy. You're this very tough guy. वो weak इंसान है, उसको तुमने मुक्का मारा, and you are saying, अरे, there's nothing wrong. He can also hit me back. The point is, he's not strong enough, and his mukka will not have the same effect. So the mukka from the strong guy has a different effect than the reverse. So you have to, you can't justify a tough person or a tough party doing something to oppress, deconstruct, break up the weaker on the argument that he can do it back. I mean, that argument would also be if some elite caste or elite group or whatever category is accused of dominating and some weaker section, then the same argument could be, why is there a problem? They can also do it. If some Brahmins are keeping the Shudras out, Dalits out of some jobs, then Dalits should organize, make their business and keep the Brahmins out. Theoretically, it may be okay, but in practice, they don't have the power, they don't have the means, they do not, so it does not have the same effect. So when the strong person hits the weak, it has a huge effect. When the weak person hits the strong, it does not have the same effect. So it is not equal, it is not parity. So what it means is this. If Indians start deconstructing United States, you think it really matters to them? You think we have the equivalent of think tanks based in America? हमारे think tanks यहीं भी नहीं है. How can we have think tanks there? You think we have the equivalent of church is evangelizing in the villages? You think we have the equivalent of that happening? We can do it over there. You think we have the equivalent of Ford Foundation that will go and set up some Indian Ambani Foundation or somebody can set up in America and over the next so many years create a network of 10,000 NGOs and really create havoc? Do you really think it's realistic? So it's nice to say हम भी उनको वे कर सकते हैं, but it is not practical because we don't have the experience of doing it. Nor are we as a civilization aggressive to take on such an experiment because we are not expansionist. The reason they are successful in doing it to us is that they have a very long history of expansionism from what God told them that you have to expand. God told them. They can always say, okay, we are doing it because God told us. We're not bad people, but God told us you have to convert the whole world. So we have been doing this. And so we try to do it peacefully, otherwise we have to force you because for your own good and all that. So the marketing of expansionism, the techniques of expansionism, the diplomacy, the military of expansionism is part of their DNA, it is not part of our DNA. The subtlety, the cleverness, the skill, the capriciousness, cunningness of doing all this, they've mastered it for a very long time. Okay, so we have not been conquerors, we have not been colonizers, we have not been expansionists. For us to say, you know, what's wrong if they are doing it to us, we'll do it to them. We are not strong enough to do it to them. It's really the fact. Also, before you propose it to confuse Indians, I want you to experiment and then come back and give me a report. I'll be really happy. Go to a Western country of your choice. Go to you mentioned UK, US. Go to either of these two countries and see if a prestigious university will take an Indian and prestigious media channel will take you to deconstruct their nation. Go and see if CNN or Fox TV in the US or Harvard will take you and give you a big chair where the whole purpose is to say break up the United States and this national anthem is built on slavery or whatever bad things about it. There are plenty of bad things about their narrative. See how far you will get before you say we could do it to them. See how far you will get. It's all, pardon my being very patronizing, but it's bacha talk. It is really bacha talk. Because I lived there 46 years. And I ran companies. I had thousands of white Americans reporting to me. And I bossed them. But there are certain things that, and I'm one of those guys who actually does all this. What you're saying, I do it. I'm a living example of somebody who actually does this to them right on their face. But the point is, you can get so far, they won't stop me, I'll keep doing it. But in terms of how much impact you can have, it is a fraction of the impact you can have in India. Because India may, to turn anti-India, anti-Hindu, in the name of this superior white idea, new ideology has come from the West, fashionable, and throw some money, throw some foreign trips, it becomes a huge success. It is not the same in the other direction. It is just not the same. China mein to khair aapko aane nahi denge. But in terms of some of the Western countries, while they are very free, there's free speech, you'll be allowed to speak and all that. But, there won't be that many takers. because they are not looking at this superior, brown-skinned superior guy. Wow, we are in awe of him. तो उसने कह दिया तो ठीक ही होगा. They don't have that same inferiority complexes that we do. So we have an asymmetry of power. We have an asymmetry of inferiority complex. We have an asymmetry of lack of experience in doing these things compared to them. We don't have the institutional mechanisms to go give grants and fund thousands of scholars in those countries and colonize them to us. We just don't have the wherewithal. So it's an incredibly naive suggestion. That's my answer. Thank you. But I do think it's a very important question. Thank you for it. Because, only by raising the question do I have an opportunity to give a detailed answer. And it's a question I hear all the time. I hear these naive things all the time, either about peace waste or कि वो हमको करेंगे, हम उनको कर देंगे. We just don't have the success. We don't have the power, the resources, or the wherewithal. We just don't have it. So and maybe, okay, suppose you are right, we should do this to them. Then all the more, we should first do the Swadeshi Indology, so we have our own foundations, and from those foundations we can turn the tables and do it to them. So I will say to you, I promise to join your movement to do this reverse postmodernism, but to do the reverse postmodernism, you first have to join my movement and become a Swadeshi Indologist.